Okay, so I think we're live. Give me 1 second just to make sure there's something running.
There she is.
The queen.
Queen Bee.
We love you, Kimmy.
I love you guys.
Yeah. uh, the Queen, Kim Coslow.
The king.
Darryl Strawberry.
Hold on 1 second, guys, and then we're ready to roll.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to roll. All right, guys. Happy Thursday. We are live. This is The Cleaner Show. I'm Mark Astor. I'm the founder and managing partner of Drug and Alcohol Attorneys. We are a law firm in Boca Raton, Florida, and we are dedicated to helping families and individuals who are in crisis because of addiction and mental illness. And I am really excited for today because I have three amazing people who have agreed to join me. And I'll start with the lady at the bottom, a good friend of mine, or now a good friend of mine, my good friend, Kim Koslow, who is the clinical outreach professional for Futures Recovery Healthcare. Kim is also a licensed mental health counselor. She's a master certified addictions professional. She's a board certified professional counselor and a certified trauma therapist. So, Kim, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so, for those of you who weren't born or didn't live in the 80s, you may not recognize that good-looking gentleman who's sitting to my far left, Pastor Darryl Strawberry, four-time World Series winner, and his amazing wife, who also, I guess, Pastor Tracy Strawberry. And I'm so excited to be able to do this with you guys. And thank you, all three of you, for giving me an hour of your time. I know you're all really busy professionals. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us and share your story with us. Welcome to my show.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's so important, that we be here and really dive into this and really talk about addiction and really talk about helping people, because that's what, we really, all three of us are really all about. Me and Kim been together for 20 years, and Tracy been in my life. And these two ladies have played such an important part in my life. And that's what people always have to remember. Other people play important parts in people's life who are struggling with addictions when they're in the midst. And I'm just truly grateful for, Kim as my sister and Tracy as my lovely wife. They pulled me out of some dark places, and they were with me through some really hard times, and they never gave up on me. So I'm grateful for their love and their passion about helping people.
Yeah, so before we get into Darryl's story, and by the way, if you haven't read Darryl's book, you need to go out and buy it. Don't give up on me. I got this book. I saw Darryl at the Sub Talks, which is sort of the substance abuse version of the TED Talks, and for $20, you got his book. Got the book and his autograph. And I'll tell you, if this doesn't move you, I don't know what will. It's an incredible story, of Darryl and his struggle. It's really amazing. And I would implore you, I would beg you to go out and get this thing, read it, and really, get to understand where Darryl came from, his story of, baseball fame and what he's done afterwards and what motivated him. It's an amazing book. But, when I had a chance to sit with Kim and she told me all about her friendship, well, I say more than a friendship. It's like a brother and sister thing with Darryl. And Kim, maybe share the story with us about how you and Darryl first met and when that was and the circumstances.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Getting teared up already. Wow. Okay.
If you start to cry, I cannot promise you I will not cry. I'm a sucker for any woman that cries. You're gonna make me. I'm serious.
Not much, but when it comes to my brother, I do. I mean, it's just it truly was a spiritual experience. You know, I was on house arrest, and I was in a small program down in Fort Lauderdale in 1999, and I'll never forget Darryl on the other side of the gate coming into treatment, and it was like our eyes just like locked and our hearts connected at that moment. There was no rhyme or reason to it, nothing that you can logically explain. It was a connection of the heart on the deepest level that I've ever experienced with a human being. And it's been that way ever since, ever since.
So you're somebody in recovery, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so I sort of talked at the beginning a little about your credentials. We know that you work at Futures, but before all that happened, share with us what you did in a past life.
Past life. Well, from what I remember that I did in the past life, I was a TV producer. I lived in New York City. I traveled the world producing television and lived the high life. And the high life brought me to the low life. And that's pretty much, that's the extent of it. I didn't know anything about baseball. I did hear about Darryl, but only because of the fact that he was a fellow addict. And but I didn't know anything about baseball. I didn't really care about baseball. It was just I was doing my own thing. I was in my own the grips of my own addiction, and living the fast life, and brought me to some low places.
Okay, so how long have you been in recovery, Kim?
19 years, November 2nd.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And how long have you worked in the treatment industry?
17 years. 17 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so your own recovery sort of brought you into the recovery industry.
Absolutely. The first year of my recovery, I was on house arrest. I was owned by the state of Florida, and I was in this treatment center with Darryl. And he, at the time, he wasn't quite ready. I'll let him tell that part, but he wasn't quite ready. He was still out there, and I was kind of like womaning the fort. I wasn't allowed to leave the premises. And one of my favorite stories is this, that Darryl asked me. The Yankees were coming down, and they were drug testing him weekly, randomly. And so Darryl asked me one day, he's like, "Kimmy, I need your pee. I need your pee." And I was like, how do you say no to Darryl Strawberry when he asks you for your pee, you know? And I did. I gave it to him. I got in a little trouble, but anyway, it was definitely, I was on house arrest, and while I don't recommend it, it was what I needed. I needed that discipline, and I needed that, like, truly the rest to stop running, and that's where my recovery started.
Well, so what do you think? What do you think was the catalyst that got you, to use?
You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I had a lot of demons, because I do believe that alcohol and drugs are a symptom of what's really going on underneath. And I believe that it is, like, I was broken. I was completely broken. I couldn't identify. I'm a gay woman, and I knew that from an early age, and I had a hard time accepting that and fitting in and feeling normal, because I wasn't normal. I didn't feel that way. And what I started telling myself was that I don't fit in, I don't belong, and drugs and alcohol allowed me to fit in for a period of time and be comfortable in my skin, until it didn't. And when it didn't, it didn't. And I had to find another way. And, I truly, what brought me to recovery was God bringing me to my knees. And it was November 2nd, 1999 is my sobriety date. And I was in a jail cell. I was in jail for 3 months. And at that time, it was over Christmas, it was over New Year's, it was over my birthday, and it was just like a profoundly spiritual time. And I needed that. It was like divine intervention. I needed to have a connection with a God that I didn't understand at that point. And sometimes today I still don't understand God, but I trust God at all times. And that is truly for me. When I look at it, all the rehabs, I've been in many rehabs in my day. I've had many counselors, many detoxes, overdoses, seizures, and jails, institutions, and almost death. And what brought me to my knees is my God. What brought me to my knees. And I know today that's the connection that has to happen by whatever means necessary. One has to have a relationship with a God of their understanding, or not of their understanding, but one that they believe in.
Right. And, Darryl, when you and I chatted yesterday, I think that was one of the points that, that you made. I know that, people see you and they still think you're Darryl Strawberry, but, when they introduced you at the Sub Talks, they said, Pastor Darryl Strawberry. And I'm like, Pastor Darryl Strawberry? When did that happen? And so, when I read your book, really it talked about your journey. So maybe you can share with us, because now, maybe I can say you and Tracy both do, I guess, what I would call God's work, but there was a time in your life when, that wasn't really, your mission. So tell us a little bit about, you talk about your dad in the book. So tell us a little bit about, where this all came from, because, most people really only know you as the guy that was hitting, 400, 500-foot home runs out of Cheyenne Yankee Stadium, but something happened in your childhood that obviously, was the catalyst that sort of followed you, while you were in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the emptiness on the inside of one's life, no matter how successful I was and how successful that I was continuing to go forward, I was always empty, throughout my whole baseball career. I was, one of those people that had everything but had nothing. I had every material thing, but I had no spiritual part of my life, the emptiness on the inside. I think most people look at people from, especially celebrities, they look at them from the standpoint of what's wrong with them, when they have all the success and they have all these things in life. And when you never feel the empty holes inside, you can only fill it with so much stuff. And I was very fortunate. I see one thing, Mark, and as my wife and Kim know, I've been privileged my whole life, because of playing Major League Baseball, but that didn't make me well. And sometimes people think being privileged will make you well, and it does not make you well. It just makes you privileged and makes you able to have more than the next person. But the inside of who am I? And the brokenness on the inside, like Kim was talking about, is so real, so deep. What's wrong with me? The rejection that I got from my father, the beatings I got from my father. There was no love. The only love I got was from my mother. And, mom can only give you so much love. As a young boy, you need a male figure in your life to really be able to hug you and show up and participate in your life. And I didn't have that in my life. My father never showed up to watch me play Little League. He only showed up when I got in high school and he started hearing about me. And he called my brother and asked my brother, "Is your brother really that good?" And my brother said, "Yeah, he really is that good." And he would come out and watch me play, but he would stand off from far away and watch me play. So there was really never a relationship. There was a disconnection there. And I think a lot of young men end up like that, and from a disconnection from the father figure separates them, brings about emptiness on the inside and makes them believe, well, what's wrong with me? Why did my dad not love me? My mother was a loving person and a caring person, and she was always there, but where was the father? And you need to hear a male figure in the home that tell you that things are going to be all right, and don't make those decisions, and because there's consequences behind those some decisions you make. I never had a chance to live like that. So I had to learn everything on my own. I had to learn everything, growing up. I had to learn everything getting into pro ball and getting into the major leagues at a young age. I had to learn everything. And when I learned everything, Mark and Kim and Tracy, it was all fast. It was like no one was going to ever control me again. After my father was out of my life, I realized that I was going to control my life and I was going to do things how I wanted to do them. And when you do things that way, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Nobody ever tell you that there's going to be some mistakes along the way that have major consequences for your life. And I didn't realize that at the time, and that's what happened to me.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice when I sit and talk to parents, the frustrating thing for the mums and dads is they say, well, they don't understand, why won't their kids stop? Why won't he stop, or why won't she stop using? And so maybe you can explain to us, when you said you felt empty, explain to us what the connection is between feeling empty and using whatever it was, pills, booze. Tell us, when you did that, how you felt. Like, why did that fill the void that you felt like you had because of the relationship with your dad?
Well, I mean, it's very simple because there's an emptiness on the inside. So I'm searching for something. I'm searching for identity of who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to be? Um, because you don't really have that connection in your household with your father. So that kind of separates you and leaves you isolated. What happened was it left me isolated. I started off at the age of 13 with behaviors, smoking marijuana, the marijuana maintenance, which nobody really ever talks about because they don't think or they don't believe it's ever going to be a problem, but it's going to lead to a greater problem later in your life. Because what happened for me was marijuana stopped working for me. I got into all kind of trouble. I was drinking Coke 45s at the age of 13, 14 years old and smoking marijuana. And I got kicked out of 4 junior high schools, setting bathrooms on fire and doing all kind of behavior things. That's what it left me with. It left me troubled on the inside. And I think sometimes parents today, they don't realize you leave your kid troubled on the inside when you don't pay attention to them. When you allow other people to pay attention to them, other people introduce other kind of things to their life. And that's what happened to me. I got introduced with other things in my life from other people because I didn't have that stability in my household as a male figure. And it didn't teach me who am I? That's why you use to escape from the reality of who you really are. Because you got to remember, my father said I would never amount to nothing. So I always believed that. Even when I became a Major League Baseball player and hitting home runs and winning championships, I always believed what he said about me, that I'll never amount to nothing, because those words came directly from him. And people don't understand, words have power. And they affect people in their life, especially kids, when you say things to them. So I always encourage parents to encourage your kids about the greatness that's on the inside of them, or who they can be, regardless of what they're going through. There's a greatness on the inside of them. And I received that from my mom, but I never received that from my father, and it left me damaged for a very long time.
Yeah, the book, there was when I read the book, there's a certain point in time where I think your father basically sort of was out of the picture. How old were you when that happened?
That was 13 years old. I mean, it was a disconnect. Once the situation occurred in our house for the last time, when he came home and pulled out a shotgun, he was drunk again and woke up the whole family, arguing with our mom. We decided to take steps, me and my brothers, and we came very close to killing my father. And it could have been a tragedy in our life that night, before I ever put on a uniform. And most people don't even know that. They just saw me put on a uniform and thought I should have been well. But we came close to destroying our entire life. Had it not been for my mother, we probably would have killed him that night. And that, from that point there, he was never a part of our life again. And we were disconnected from that point all the way into my adulthood. I mean, I went into my career and left him out of my career, and there was an emptiness. There was no relationship. But before he passed, I was able to make my amends and build my relationship with him, and ask him to forgive me, because I was wrong too. Because two wrongs don't make a right. And when we learn that and understand that, you have to be able to move forward. So I was able to, heal that relationship after all I had been through in all those years. I was able to be the man that God created me to be, to go back and ask him to forgive me and heal that relationship. Because healing is real and very important on the inside for all of us, because we all have to get healed in some kind of way. And it's usually through our relationships in our household. Kim household was different. Tracy household was different than my household. My household was chaotic. When I came home, I didn't know what I was going to get. I would see my father's car there. I would not come home. I would hit the street corner and I'd just go smoke me some weed and be on my way, because I didn't really want to deal with what was going on in my household most of the time.
Yeah, there's a really, towards the end of the book, and I think it comes after the chapter where you talk about Ron Dock, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, because he is, wow, God, amazing guy, right? He's the guy that's, along with Tracy, that really, if there were two people in your life that, in addition to Kim, that really saved you, was Ron Dock and Tracy. But there was a really, I thought, poignant piece of the book where you said, I looked at my father and I realized for the first time that he was a broken man, and that's why he was the way with us, because he was broken. And it was almost like it was a generational thing, and it wasn't until you got clean that you realized why your father was the way he was.
Well, usually that's what it is, um, Mark. You know, it's usually a generational thing, a generational curse, or brokenness, emptiness on the inside in the family household, with addiction, with alcoholism, because they've seen someone. He saw his father be an alcoholic, and realizing all those things, you know, had come into play in my life. You know, when I went back and revisit, you know, hearing the stories from his grandma and aunties about his dad, and then he turned out to be that way. And I made a commitment that I wouldn't turn out to be that way, but I did turn out to be that same way, just like my father, alcoholic, abusive, rejection of the kids, rejection of the wives. And I turned out to be the same way, because if you don't get healed, you know, healing is very important for anyone that's afflicted with addiction. And if the healing process that doesn't come over one's life, they're going to continue to do the same habits. They're going to have the same pattern. You know, they're going to do the same thing that that they saw in their household. And it's unfortunate that we have to go through that, but that's a real reality.
Wow. You know, another really interesting part of the book, and it was something that I sort of, you know, growing up here in the late 80s and early 90s, I sort of was somewhat familiar with, was your relationship with Doc Gooden, especially when you got to the Mets. And it almost seems like as much as you had a kinship with Kim, right? You had kind of a similar kinship with Doc Gooden when you guys were playing for the Mets.
No question. I had a tremendous bond with him playing together as a Met, playing in New York. Both of us young, you know, exciting African Americans coming into the major leagues at young age. He was 19, I was 21. We were able to do some things that people were amazed of, you know, the talent that we had. We both had tremendous talent. But I think on the inside of our life, you know, there were some scars and wounds, and we were afflicted with so many other demonic forces that came along with that lifestyle. And nobody ever talk about the demonic forces that come along with that lifestyle. There is no no's when you play at that level, and you're as good as me and Doc Gooden was. Nobody tells you no. Everybody tell you you're okay. You can do whatever you want. And, you know, eventually it's going to start to play out in people's lives. And for me and him playing in New York City, that's what happened. You know, we were so successful at such a young age, and things started to play out. You know, the lifestyle was real. There was no nose. We can go into a club and we could drink all night. Nobody would say anything to us. We can be in the club dancing all night and knowing I got to play the next day. Nobody said nothing to us, and just things. And you get comfortable in that lifestyle. You know, you go in the store in New York, and you go in the clothing store, they give you free clothes. I was like, man, I love this. They're giving me free clothes. I ain't even got to pay for clothes, you know. And then you go into restaurants, they feed you free. And it was just a lifestyle of sitting there and waiting for things to come unraveling, because they really do eventually at some point in time, it will come to just a stop. And then you got to start realizing that this is a mess. You know, this is not the kind of life that, you know, I really want to live, but you end up in it and you just can't get out of the cycle of it.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, there was a couple of times I think you talked about the fact that you'd play a game, you and Doc would go out all night long, you'd party, you'd drink, you'd do whatever you were doing, you'd stay out so late that basically there was no point in going home and sleeping. Just go basically from the club straight to the ballpark. You would, I think you called it, was it greenies? I think you called them greenies or some deal, right? You take some, and then you go and play another game. You hadn't been to bed for 2 days. How'd you manage that? I mean, I know if I get less than 8 hours of sleep, I'm a zombie. You've been up for 2 days. You're playing, I mean, in the best baseball league with the best players on the planet, and you're doing it on literally no sleep.
Well, it was me. It wasn't Doc a lot, because, you know, I used to run hard because I was an everyday player, and I just felt like I got addicted to amphetamines, and I got addicted to the lifestyle of going out and just being out all night and coming in the morning and ready to go. It was just became a part of my pattern. I didn't really realize how good of a player I was, and I just realized that I was a person that was searching for my identity. I had the wrong identity, and for a very long time, you know, as being a baseball player and wearing the uniform. And, you know, like I said, I had people in my life, like my wife sitting next to me, and like Kim over there sitting next over there, and Ron Doc. These people came into my life, and they played a major part of helping me grow up. You know, and I never grew up. I played baseball, put a uniform on, and Tracy said, "You're never gonna be a man and you're never going to be responsible till you take the uniform off. And I had the uniform on for a very long time. I knew how to be a baseball player, but I just didn't know how to be a man because I was never taught how to be a man. And when you're never taught how to be a man, you're going to struggle in life. You're going to find yourself, living a life and believing that this is the life and I'm comfortable with it. And I just got embedded into it. I got deeply involved into the drinking, the girls, the sex, whatever it was. And it became, I was so twisted inside, it was a twisted pattern of my life that I lived day after day.
Yeah, they talk about addiction as being a family disease. In other words, it affects the family. So when all this craziness was going on, I know you were married, you had kids. How did this affect your home life?
Well, I lost two marriages because of addiction, and I had 6 children who were affected by my behaviors. And I always try to explain that today, as being in recovery and being a pastor and everything. I try to explain it today to men. Your decisions will affect your children. Because you're supposed to be the head over them, and if you don't make the right decisions, it's going to have some type of effect on their life. And I've been very fortunate with my kids because of my life changed at such a time when they were young and they wasn't too far gone, and they were able to see the shift and the change in my life, and I think that's very critical for the young people who are struggling, and if they don't see a change in their household and they don't see the love and know that the love is real. It's hard for them to make that transition to change and cross over to the other side, because they have to be able to see it from people that they know, that they love and they care for. And I destroyed those marriages and the relationships, but I was able to build those relationships back up with my children. I was able to go back to their mothers and tell them, you know what, I'm sorry. I was not a good husband. I was the wrong man at the time. I wasn't a man of faith. I was a man just operating in who I was and thought I could do anything I wanted to do because I was Darryl Strawberry, a great baseball player.
Wow. So Tracy, I've had a chance to talk to Kim and Darryl, but you and I got on about 1:45 before we came on live, and I said, wow, look at that smile. Kim to put it on TV because that's $1 million smile right there. And I felt like I know you just a little bit because I read all about you, but from what I read in the book, you have been a very, very important part of Darryl's life and keeping him in recovery and, really making him the man that I saw at Suds and the man that we're getting a chance to talk to now. So tell me, how'd you guys meet? How'd you come into Darryl's life? I mean, how'd that happen?
Sure.
I always ask, by the way, when I meet a married couple, being a divorced guy, I always ask that. I say, how'd you guys meet? Was it a blind date? I kind of sort of need to know this stuff, right? I mean, as a single guy.
Well, ours is a different, interesting kind of story. Darryl and I, we were lost at first sight. We met at a recovery convention. I'm also 17 years clean and sober. I lost custody of my children from active addiction. So I understand addiction from a personal perspective, but I also understand addiction from the perspective of knowing what it takes to get well and how to get well. So when Darryl and I first met, it doesn't take very much time to look at Darryl Strawberry and know the genuine man that he is. He is just so genuine.
You can only see his face right now.
It's true. It's true.
The proud husband sitting there. He's so proud of you. I have to tell you. He's like, look at my wife. Isn't she unbelievable? Just look at her. I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to let her say her thing because she's so unbelievable.
Because Mark, you got to understand, I am proud of these ladies here, Kimmy too, and
they're unbelievable.
Tracy, amazing women that came into my life that made a difference in my life. So I'm grateful for that.
I will tell you, having now worked within the treatment community for close to 3 years now, the treatment industry, and even though it gets bad press down here, especially in Florida, is full of the most unbelievable people who care, people who love, people who want to make a difference in other people's lives. So, I know people read bad stuff in the press, but you get involved in the treatment community down here. It is full of the most unbelievable people. I'll tell you, I always say, when you go to an event at the treatment industry, you get a lot of hugs and kisses. You go to one with lawyers, you get a couple of handshakes. That's the difference. Hey, for those lawyers that are listening, this is the difference, okay? And
recovery is a life or death situation. Right. So when you meet someone, you are automatically joined together, life and death, family. You meet children and parents, and there's such a desperation there. So the recovery community rallies around one another because it's love that pulls us out. So Kimmy was there the day that I met Darryl, and she was a very important part of my recovery as well. She helped pull me out as well. She walked with me side by side. She walked with Darryl and I side by side through our craziness and our insanity as well when we first came together. Darryl is a very loving person, and many individuals who struggle in recovery, we're amazing people. We're full of love. We go just as hard on the love side and the help side and the successful side as we do with our demons and the destructive behavior that we have. But what happens in a person's life, Mark, is this. God created us. He is the one that created us. So many times we are struggling with our identity. We have to identify ourselves with God. I know I lost my way because I was living a life without God. I was angry at God. I blamed God for everything. My truth about God was distorted. And the first thing they tell you in recovery, and even in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, says, we have a spiritual malady, a chronic illness of the spirit. But once we straighten out and we overcome that spiritual malady, then we become well physically and emotionally. So we have to deal with the spiritual aspect of recovery, which I think gets lost in recovery today. So when you see someone who's suffering, why won't they stop? Why can't they just stop? We're in a bondage. This addiction controls us. So wellness has to be brought to the entire person. We have to treat the entire person, spiritual, physical, emotional. Every part of that person has to be treated. And if you leave one of the elements out, the person will not become well. So God created us to identify ourselves with him, number one. Number two, God is the only one that can heal us because he is our creator. Deep healing needs to take place, and that requires a step of faith and trust. Then he developed us with gifts and talents. Many people will relapse because they never experience success or even purpose. People literally get bored. They don't know why they're here. There's a frustration that sets in. So we have to discover our gifts and talents. We have to develop purpose, and we have to walk that out. And it goes back to recovery. Many people, like you say, it gets a bad name, especially in Florida, but you know, the news always wants to talk about the bad things because it's gossip and it stirs the emotions of people. But great and wonderful things happen through recovery when you're loving on people, helping people to get connected back to God, to get healed from the inside out, because drugs and alcohol is just a manifestation. It's an expression, an outward expression of the inward brokenness, as Kim said. It's an outward expression of a spiritual disconnect with God. It's an outward expression of being underdeveloped in our gifts and our talents and everything that God has created us to be. So when you don't have this understanding and identity, and the first thing usually that people want to push away is the God piece. God, where were you when? God, how could this have happened to me when I was young? People who are abused, people who have been raped, sex trafficked. We deal with these things. People just feeling empty. There's a disconnect there because God created us to be connected to him and live life in his plan and live out his will. When we don't do that, we cannot get healed. We can't do it ourselves. The 12 steps of recovery teach us that. So if we don't trust God and we don't step into the full plan that God has for us, we will continue to relapse because that emptiness shows up. The frustration shows up. The pain shows up. The rage shows up. The lack of purpose shows up. And people will take a drink or a drug because they want to disconnect. You asked the question earlier, why do people use? Because they want to check out a reality. It changes we want to change our mood. We want to alter our mind. We don't want to deal with reality. It's too difficult. We don't want to deal with the pain, and we don't want to feel empty.
All right. So let me ask you a question, because, you know, in the book, Darryl talks about his relationship with his father, and we sort of touched on it now. You know, we actually get a sizable population of families that come to us where they have children they've adopted, and those children, some of those children develop addiction and mental illness, and the sort of hurdle that some of these children are dealing with is this terrible feeling of rejection. Why did my biological parents not want me? You know, why wasn't I loved? And yeah, you know, I got adopted by a great family, but why did my real mother not want me? So how do we equate that, right? When a family comes to me and tells me that, with you've talked about today, and Darryl and I've talked about it yesterday, with this whole issue of spirituality. How do those two sort of connect, right? Where's the connection with those two? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, the Bible says, because Darryl and I, our faith is in Jesus Christ. So our higher power is the Holy Spirit. So the Bible says that when my mother and father forsake you, I, the Lord, will adopt you and bring you in. So how that plays out spiritually, Mark, is God will place individuals in our lives that will love us and care for us as we should have always been loved and cared for. The problem is, and the issue is God knew that we would mess it up. He knew that we would mess up the family dynamic, hence the divorce rate. We see that in divorced families, broken families, and people who are adopted. You just don't know what your mother and father are going through. Many people give up their children for adoption because they are not fit parents, and they know it. They know that they would hurt that child even deeper. They know they would possibly even abuse that child. So walking that child through a clear understanding of, number one, you didn't ask for it. Number two, God has a way of escape and a plan for you to place you and position you in a family of love where you are going to be cared for, where you deserve the love that he created them to have as well. So there's a plan, there's a way of escape, but also playing out the scenarios of what could have happened, but also encouraging them. We need you to make the choice to be able to move ahead and move forward. Let us help you walk through the pain, but let us give you practical steps on how you move forward and make the choice to live a successful life without this being a hindrance or a stumbling block for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and let me also jump in on that, because you have to also, when you're dealing with young people who are been afflicted with something and rejection, and they go into another household or whatever it may be, because of their parents, we have to make sure that we encourage them that they are not a mistake. And that's so important. When we're working with people who is in addiction, we see a lot of that. I see a lot of young people come into treatment and they think they're a mistake, and we have to reassure them that they are not a mistake. They have many mistakes in their life, and you have to be, Mark, people like myself, Kim, and Tracy, Ron, Doc, we have to be able to show the people the scars of our life. We have to be able to show them where we were. And if you can't really show them where you were, and you're trying to help them from a different perspective, it's going to be very difficult, because we're in a very difficult time now with opiates and heroin addiction, the way it is for this younger generation. And most people are taking opiates and heroin because they think their life, they're a mistake. They don't belong here. And I hear, and they say they'd rather be dead instead of being here. So we have to be able to show them that they're not a mistake and bring that spiritual connection back into their life. I think that spiritual piece is missing so deeply inside of them, and they're yearning for something, but they don't know what it is. And we have to be able to show it to them. All of us have to be able to show it to them from our scars. We got to show them, people like ourselves that has been through the battle of addiction and have scars from it, and saying, look, I have had these challenges. I have had these scars in my life, and I have allowed people to come into my life and help me and encourage me and show me that I wasn't a mistake. Because if it wasn't for people being around me, I always say this, my saying, what is it going to take? It's going to take people helping people.
And Mark, and that's an important thing. That brings us back to the identity. Our parents don't identify us. Our parents were created to help us develop into who God created us to be. So the identity, people experience rejection all the time. We go through this with divorced families, the blended family. There's rejection in a lot of ways that it's experienced. So sitting down with that young person, loving on them, putting them through a plan of wholeness, and getting them to understand, like Darryl said, you're not a mistake, and let's overcome that objection. And the main key and the main goal is their identity in God, the greatness that's within them. Who did he create you to be? Let's focus on the positive and get it going in the right direction. And that takes time, and it takes a plan to come together and help that young person.
Jump in there, Kimmy.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump down to Kimmy anyway, because I haven't spoken in a little bit. So I'm gonna come back to Darryl and Tracy in a little bit. But Kim, at the beginning of the session, I talked about, I sort of read a few of your credentials, but I really don't think that, telling people your credentials does you any justice. Tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, how you're helping people.
Well, every day is different. but I work for Futures. I say this all the time. I work for Futures Recovery Healthcare, but my employer is God. And every morning when I say my prayers and I ask God to use me throughout that day, and I can't tell every single day of my life, there has not been a day that I can remember that in some way I haven't seen where I haven't been touched by somebody that needed help. Because here's the thing: giving and receiving are the same. And when I'm able to help somebody else heal, they're healing, helping me heal.
Right, right.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that works. And I love what I do. I love where I work. Um, I love the program that I work for. I want to say this right now, just because we were talking about families and God and all of that. I want to kind of give a shout out to my 90-year-old mother, who I know is watching. And I just want to say thank you, Mom, for never giving up on me.
Right.
Because she didn't. And what I see in this day and age is, my mom's 90. Now what is happening is the next generation, that's where the boomers, we were called the boomers, and that's where drugs and alcohol really started to become a problem, and treatment centers and getting help and all of that. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of the kids these days, their parents are not the parents, my 90-year-old mother. They're the parents that are like 60s and 70s and that are boomers and that have had addiction themselves. And so what has to happen is we have to heal this. We have to heal. We must heal addiction on a deeply spiritual level. AA saved my life. AA and NA saved my life. And it says in the how it works of AA, there is one power, and that one is God. May you find him now. Right. And if I could extrapolate any one thing from the 12-step program of AA or NA, it would be that. It would be that. And that's what I carry with me every blessed day that I do God's work, because that's what I'm doing. And I'm blessed to do it for an incredible treatment center. And well, I'm going to say this, and the people that I work for at the treatment center know this, that just because I work for Futures, and they would want me to do this, that when I come in contact with somebody, like for example, somebody that needs equine therapy, can identify, a young kid that can identify with horses, for example. We don't have horses at Futures of Recovery Healthcare, but I know a place that does, and I will find a place that does, because by whatever means necessary at this point in life, because if we don't meet people where they're at, we're going to have them dead. And we've got to stop this at this point in time. Yeah. And I want to say one thing to Tracy also, that Tracy, my sister, I love you with all my heart, because I can remember when we keep talking about, Darryl had to take off the uniform, and I was like, what is she talking about? She's destroying this whole thing. She's taking him away from us. Doc and I were so mad at you.
I remember. Oh, I remember.
Took our D away from us, taking him to, she's leaving. She said, okay, I'm going to go. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me, but I'm not staying here. And we were like, Doc and I were like, oh my God, she's taking our boy away from us. And then it went to, you got to take off the uniform. The cleats are in the bag. And I was like, what? The cleats are in the bag? What are you kidding? And I want to tell you here and now, right here and now, Tracy, thank you. Thank you for saving my brother's life. Yeah. Because truly, if it wasn't for you, he wouldn't be here right now. And I know that. I love you both.
I love you back. We love you back. Yeah. We loved him, and we let him, and God changed him.
Kim, I want to ask you a question. As who works in the industry, has done for many years. When I was speaking to Nat this morning, and I get this a lot when I speak to a group of people. There's always this sort of, they say to me, well, if we get our kids to treatment, can you guarantee that they'll stay clean? And I say, no, treatment's not a magic pill. I don't have, my mind, what I do in the court is not a magic pill. And I explain to them, look, there's a big difference between getting clean and staying clean, right? I mean, the staying clean bit starts after you get out of treatment. So maybe from a clinical perspective, you can talk about that. Like what is that like? I mean, what happens, you do 30, 69 days of some type of treatment. What happens afterwards? Because you just can't go back to where you were before. I mean, you read Darryl's book. I mean, he went right back to his life and he fell off the wagon again.
Absolutely.
So to tell me what that looks like.
Sure. From a clinical standpoint, from a continuum of care is what we call it. And so we've known this for many, many years, that the longer one can stay in a structured, sober, clean and sober environment, the better their chances are of staying clean and sober. Unfortunately, nowadays with insurance not paying and people not being able to afford to stay in treatment, we've got to look at other ways, and I'll get to that in a minute because that's where Dee and Darryl and Tracy come in. But what it is that 30 days in treatment, great, okay. If somebody can afford it, a lot of people can't afford treatment, and that's another thing that we got to find ways. We got to find ways. It can't just
Absolutely.
If it's church, go to church. If it's smart recovery, there's a thing called smart recovery. Do that by whatever means necessary. But ideally, it's to stay in a clean and sober environment. It doesn't mean staying in treatment, because really, like at Futures, what we do when people come into treatment, we coin them in. We welcome them into a life of recovery by whatever means. We don't say it has to be AA. We don't say it has to be Celebrate Recovery, faith-based. We don't say it. You choose, but you must choose one way, and stay for 30 days. And then there's outpatient, where you can go and come to outpatient. At Futures, we have outpatient, we have sober living. It's a step down, but the bottom line is most times, we must remove ourselves from the environment that we were living in the midst of our addiction. We've got to. People, places, and things. It's a very simple concept, but very hard to live by. And I think that there's a lot of fear in coming into treatment and changing everything that we know for the unknown. And that's where, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. I'm faithful. I'm a woman of profound faith. That faith has gotten me through moments where no human power could. And it's got to be that putting our hands, when we don't know what's next, that we've got to put our hands and faith in a God that we understand, don't understand, a way of life that's different from the way that we've been doing it. It just has to be that way. It has to be that way. The golden rule still stands. The longer you can stay in a sober environment, clean and sober environment, the better your chances are of changing your ways, changing your life, filling your life up with something other than what it was filled. We filled that empty hole, that gut-wrenching hole in our souls, with drugs and alcohol. And now it's about emptying it out of drugs and alcohol and filling it with something else. And it's got to be something spiritual. It's got to be, if you want to paint, if you want to ride horses, fill it with riding horses. God will find you. God will find you. If you're worried about finding God, God will find you. Don't worry about that. If it's about horses, go ride horses. Go ride horses and do it in a treatment center. If it's about you want to paint, go paint. But you've got to be able to empty out and fill up again.
Right. You go, Kim.
Thank you, Dee.
Right about that. You definitely have to feel that empty void inside of you, because every person that involved themselves and get caught up into the midst of addiction and alcoholism, there's emptiness on the inside. I had plenty of money. Money don't make you well. See, money just make you buy more junk, and you celebrate yourself. One day you buy a new car, and the next day you look at it, you want another one. It's just the way it is. But it's that emptiness on the inside, and it's not until you come to that place, and like you said, it's spiritual. It's a spiritual connection that you have to get. I mean, my life, me and Tracy's life, Kim's life is such a joy now because spiritually we connected. For a very long time, I was not connected spiritually. And so many people are missing it. It's not thumping over the head with Bible. Yes, we do ministry and that's who we are, but we don't thump. It's practical steps, practical biblical steps are principles that you put in your life, and you allow your life to find out what's wrong with me. And I think so many people have gotten away from what's wrong with me, and instead they just continue to cover that up and continue to use, because they haven't figured out spiritually I'm broken on the inside, and all I need is a spiritual awakening. And that's really what our whole program is all about too. Programs are great for people who are ready and who are ready to connect. It doesn't matter what kind of program it is. If you're ready to connect, you go to that program. But eventually you're going to have a place where spiritually that you have connected inside with God of your understanding for sure. I know God, my understanding, but you're going to have to connect with him for yourself so you can be well on the inside, because you'll never get well on the inside. I mean, people keep trying this. It's a revolving door. That's why the treatment centers are being a revolving door these days now, because nobody's getting well spiritually. Everybody's coming in and, well, just take another one of this, take some Suboxone, make you feel better, to help the cravings go away. No, that's just another thing that alters your mind. It keeps you stuck spiritually, where you're not able to, come to a place and be free on the inside. People need to get free. This is where we're at now. People need to get free. The brokenness is so deep. The death rate is so high. And like Kim said, it will not stop until they have a spiritual encounter with God himself to deliver them of the hurt, the pain, the shame, or whatever, the trauma, whatever has happened in their life. Because if you're in addiction, you're an alcoholic, you got some stuff. You got some junk in your trunk that needs to be cleaned out. And nobody can clean that junk out of your trunk but God himself, and you need to allow him to clean it out. And so that's where we sit today. That's where we sit today with our new treatment, our facility, what we have, the Clean, Sobered, and Saved program that Tracy has put together to be able to help. Explain to that.
Well, can I just interrupt for one thing? Because I want to talk about what you guys are doing before we wrap up. That's really important to me. But Kim, I want to just touch on one thing that Darryl said. He talked about, the whole idea of being ready. And so, when families come to me, Darryl and Kim and Tracy, they're asking me to help them to make the decision their kid can't make. And so sometimes the one parent will say, well, I want to wait till my kid hits rock bottom. But Darryl, that rock bottom can be dead or in prison or behind a garbage dump, with saliva hanging out of your mouth. You know what I mean? As you talked about in the book. So, right. So Kim, maybe from a clinical perspective, I mean, we're trying to make a decision these kids can't make.
Sometimes, here it is. It's right. It's about intervention. It's about intervention. Mine was divine intervention. But back in the day, it wasn't like it is today, where people are dying and we just can wait for them to hit bottom. Forget about hitting bottom. We gotta help them see what bottom's gonna be.
Right.
We gotta do it in a loving and dignified way. So, for example, when I do an intervention, the intervention is, there's no ambush. We've already been ambushed and attacked. We've done it to ourselves. We've been out there in the streets. We've already experienced that. It's about experiencing love and by whatever means necessary, gathering the family, the loved ones. Intervention is more important than ever, because of the fact that there is no waiting for somebody to get ready at this point. Getting ready could be dead.
Right.
And probably will be dead. And so the more there are interventionists all over this country, and even if you're not an official interventionist like myself, make no mistake that everybody has that opportunity. Everybody has that opportunity at any moment to be the interventionist that's going to save somebody's life.
That's right.
That's right.
So that's where, for me, that's what I believe, that intervention is more important than ever before to help get somebody the help that they need when they can't see it.
Right. And that's it's really a large part of what we do. But as I always tell groups, especially in the treatment industry, at the end of the day, I'm just a lawyer with a piece of paper. And it's folks like you, Kim, and Tracy and Darryl that really, you guys do all the hard work. I just get them there. So
but that's half the battle. If they don't get there, they'll die.
Yeah. So Darryl and Tracy, tell us about your treatment center, because people don't know about what you're doing now, and so I want to talk about that. Tell us about your place and where it is and what you're doing and all that fun stuff. Because I know Darryl, actually, unlike some other people, Darryl's there he's doing the treatment. I mean, listen, if you go to treatment with Darryl, you'll go to treatment with Darryl.
Yes, yes.
Can I just chime in for 1 second?
Yes.
I just want to say one thing. I said this yesterday when talking to you, Mark. Darryl will never say this about himself, but what I love about my brother is that when the company that Oglethorpe that came to him and asked him to use his name for their treatment center, Darryl's not like that. You don't get to just use my name. You don't get to buy my name. It's not for sale. What Darryl does, Darryl is hands-on in there. Darryl and Tracy moved to Orlando just so they could be there, be close, be able to go over to the treatment center. Darryl does groups there. Tracy was running the place for a while. I mean, they are hands-on there. And that's what I love about you guys. And I know you're too humble to say it, but it's pretty freaking awesome because not many people do that.
Thanks, Kimmy. Well, our experience coming out and loving families drove us to create this relationship for the Darryl Strawberry Recovery Centers. So if you go to Darryl Strawberry Recovery Center, just Google it. And the purpose is because we know the pain and we know the struggle, but we also know what it takes to get well. The beauty of the Darryl Strawberry Recovery Center, Kim, like you said, is people have the power of choice. So we offer a standard secular treatment program where people can come in if they're not so sure about a Christian program, but we also offer a Christ-centered program to take them on a deep spiritual journey that is missing today in recovery. So you have the option. That's what I love about our treatment center. Whatever condition you are, whatever you believe, whatever you are, we're going to love you. We're going to help you because even Jesus gave everybody the power of choice. Nobody can be forced into faith and nobody can be forced into wellness. Love is what makes them well. A good, strong program makes them well, where we address trauma, we address family situations, anything that they've gone through. We give them a stable, strong treatment plan, a discharge plan. What do I do when I get out while I'm dealing with the issues on the inside while I'm in treatment?
Give them an idea what the Christian program is.
So the Christian program offers a curriculum that I wrote, Clean, Sober, and Saved, which is a Christ-centered 12-step program, Kim, which you are very familiar with. It's all over the world. The success rate is incredible because what we have here at the Christian Recovery Program is we have a full-time pastor with Christian care. We have Christian therapists, morning devotionals, groups focused on prayer and topical Bible studies, attention to family and relationship issues, Christian music, Christian aftercare discharge plans, things of that nature. But we also have the secular treatment plan as well, yes, because we just want to love on people right where they're at and make sure that they get well. But Clean, Sober, and Saved is in the Philippines, it's in Canada, it's all over the world because of the success rate, because it deals with real issues. It deals with that brokenness. It deals with the identity issues as far as who am I? Why did God create me? What am I here for? We talk about spiritual gifts and purpose. So it's not just heavy treatment all the time. We talk about joyful things. We have fun. We do great things where people see the side of life. What does life look like away from using drugs and alcohol? What do we do here? So we expose them to all of those things. And it's a very strong recovery center and treatment plan.
And we know, Mark and Kim, we know that it's a great problem across America because we travel the country a lot and done a lot of things. But there's a solution. There's a solution to the problem that we're dealing with and the brokenness that we're dealing with. Is being able to go a little deeper than what we've been before. And these kids today are very educated. Their IQs are high and off the chart. And if you don't meet them right where they're at, where their pain is, they won't connect with you. But if you meet them where their pain is, and we meet them with love, because I know so many kids have been in treatment centers and they've been going through so many different places, and they know when you really love them. They know when you really care for them. They know that they're not just a number in your treatment center, and we got to get past that. America today has to get past that, making kids out of a number, those people. I've heard people work in the field. I told people that work in these places, I said, if you work in a treatment center, it's not about you. It's about those that's coming in. It's about their life. Their life is on the line. of life and death, you know, and you got a chance to pour into their life with great love and great principles. So however it is, you know, whatever kind of plan, just learn to love people. That's what people need to get back to. That's what America needs to get back to, is learn how to love people that are hurting. No one signs up to be a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
I was famous. I was rich. I didn't sign up to be a drug addict. I became a drug addict because of the brokenness on the inside. So we need to reach people on their brokenness and deal with them from a spiritual place to help them find life, you know, because there's life in spirituality. There's real life in there, and people need to know that. We're examples. All three of us are sitting here with prime examples because of you know, our spiritual life has overcome the darkness of our life.
Wow.
The Strawberry Recovery Center, St. Cloud, Florida. It's in Orlando.
Just the website and a phone number. Do you have it, Tracy?
Yes.
Let's let the folks have it. And then Kim, I want to do the same for futures.
Yes, it's 844-665-1236. That's hard to remember.
So
So
one more time then. Let's get it one more time.
844-665-1236. The Darryl Strawberry Recovery Center.com.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Kim, if people want to, so you're a Futures. Where's Futures located?
Futures is located in Tequesta, Florida, Jupiter, Tequesta area. Beautiful, beautiful campus, specializing with trauma and the co-occurring disorders as well as addiction. Lovely, lovely place. 30 days. Come in, try it. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. That's how much I'm out there. I'll take your call morning, noon, and night.
Great.
54540-8441. You call me and I will get you the help.
Repeat that one more time, Kim.
954-540-8441. And please go to the Futures website, which is www.futuresofpalmbeach.com.
Okay, and I'm going to give my information out, and then we're gonna log off. So if you want to get a hold of me and you didn't get either Kim or Darryl or Tracy's information, you can call me. Or if you just want to know about the Marchman Act or the guardianship, or you've been arrested, give me a call. So you can reach us. Our office line 561-419-6095. That's 561-419-6095. And our website is drug and A&D, so it's drug and alcohol attorneys with an S.com, drug and alcohol attorneys.com. And you can email me, Mark with a K, MARK at drug and alcohol attorneys.com. Wow. You know, for a lawyer, I'm speechless, but this has been the best show. And hey, Darryl, do you still have the Met shirt? Just so do you have the Met shirt? Come on. Before we went online, you had that Met shirt. You got to show that.
I was showing it to you, Mark, because you said you had Met fans.
All my friends called me and they said, hey, I'm a big Mets fan. You got Darryl Strawberry?
Woohoo!
How about that? So for all the Yankees fans, sorry, guys.
How about it, guys? There you go.
So Darryl and Tracy and Kit, thank you so much for taking an hour to spread a little love and help me to get the word out there. And if anybody, for some reason, didn't get your contact information, they can contact me. I will gladly give it out. And wow, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, all of you, and Kim for making this happen. And frankly, I was shocked when Darryl said yes. So
I told you, Mark. Remember what I told you yesterday? I said if it's for Kim, that's my black.
You did say that.
She gets action. She gets action. She always gets action because we are connected by the hip from a long time, you know, and just like family. And it's amazing, you know, it's amazing that God put people together. It doesn't matter what walk of life you've been through, but when you come together in recovery, you love each other and you care for each other. And Kim has been one of those, you know, just dear friends forever in me and Tracy's life. We're so grateful for her, and not only her, it was Kim and Hess at the time, you know, that we
gotta give a shout out to Hess.
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to Hess, you know, because we all came together, so we were like family, you know, and we did everything as family, you know, and that's important. That's important in our life. Me and Tracy's life, and Kim is important in our life, and Hess and Ellen's important in our life too, because we love them, and you know, they family to us.
Amen.
Wow, amen to that. All right, so I'm going to log off of Facebook, guys. Hang tight for me, okay?